for cultural appropriation. Has anyone here ever called someone out for cultural appropriation?
Ultimately, because it's not you, and you're getting some kind of cultural capital from that by doing it.
And who's hurt by that? We have this great freedom of speech, but then we seem to start getting in our own way.
Dr. Phil McGraw, the straight-talking psychologist who's helped millions, is now taking on his biggest challenge yet: America's woke culture. Brace yourselves as we dive into Dr. Phil's no-holds-barred takedown of political correctness gone wild.
Thank you for being here. I appreciate it. Tell me what you're thinking and feeling right now, Gary.
I'm hurt bad. Really bad.
Dr. Phil is no longer just addressing personal challenges on his show. Now, he's tackling some of today's most significant societal shifts, particularly the expansion of woke culture. And he's not pulling any punches.
Okay, but a lot of the time that people that I've seen are called out for this, it's not that they were making fun or mocking in some way. It was just that they had adopted a fashion or a style or whatever.
Dr. Phil sees himself as a critical voice against what he considers a dangerous shift in societal values. He argues that topics like cancel culture and entitlement are reshaping how society thinks and behaves, and he's taking this message directly to his massive audience.
What do you have to say?
Why?
I just want you to know that you didn't do anything wrong. You didn't do anything wrong.
What do you have to say about his reactions to this? I mean, you can see this is very raw for him.
From Dr. Phil's perspective, woke culture began with good intentions, promoting awareness of social injustices, but he now believes it has spiraled out of control. Through numerous episodes and media interviews, he has been vocal about the growing emphasis on political correctness, the victim mentality, and the sense of entitlement that he sees dominating public discourse. Woke culture started with good intentions, but has it gone off the rails? Dr. Phil thinks so, and his take might make you question where we are headed. In several episodes of his program and conversations with various media outlets, Dr. Phil has criticized the rise of political correctness, victimization mentality, and entitlement in American discourse.
These are all celebrities who have been called out, criticized, and condemned for cultural appropriation. Has anyone here ever called someone out for cultural appropriation? You too? You have? You have?
Yep.
In his view, the original purpose of woke culture has been overshadowed by behaviors that foster division, censorship, and a lack of accountability. Dr. Phil has been quick to break down these complex societal changes into simple, relatable terms, just as he does with personal conflicts on his show. Is society encouraging us to see ourselves as victims? How do you view this rising trend? Dr. Phil's approach to this matter is forthright, similar to how he handles personal disputes on his program. He often simplifies complex, emotionally charged problems into basic, digestible ideas that connect with his audience.
When we look at what's going on, it's shocking. They talk about the fact that the big problem in America is income inequality. And my position is the big problem in this country is income equality.
One of Dr. Phil's more controversial views is his critique of the welfare system, which he ties directly to what he calls an entitlement culture. He believes that while welfare programs are designed to support those in need, they have inadvertently fostered a mindset where some feel they deserve support without contributing to society. Dr. Phil explained how, although government welfare programs are intended to aid those in need, they have unintentionally created an atmosphere in which many individuals believe they are entitled to assistance without contributing to society.
I'll bet you, in terms of net purchasing power, these people have more. Why? They don't spend money on commuting. They don't spend money on wardrobe. They don't have any overhead because they don't do anything.
He has explicitly criticized how this culture has pushed some people to live on assistance rather than seeking work, frequently at the expense of their self-esteem and mental health.
These people 90+% work, and they earn $66,000 on average, but because they pay actual taxes, they only net 61. So the difference between here and here is only $11,000.
Dr. Phil previously said that those who have numerous jobs may earn less than those who need assistance. In his opinion, the system has been turned on its head since people who contribute to society are often penalized, while those who do not are rewarded. He argues that this dynamic creates a psychological trap, diminishing motivation for self-improvement and fostering dependency on government aid. According to Dr. Phil, this is a significant obstacle to both personal growth and societal progress. Have you noticed this entitlement mentality in your own life? Drop a comment with your experiences.
You say you don't support reparations. Why not?
Not everybody suffered equally. I mean, when you go into slavery, it's much more complex than white people were the oppressors and black people were the victims. If you dissect it, you will find there were about 3,700 free blacks who owned 12,000 slaves.
Dr. Phil also sees woke culture as a threat to free speech. While he acknowledges that political correctness may have been well-meaning initially, he believes it has evolved into a form of censorship that stifles open conversation.
My position is this. I want us to deal with the facts. Let's deal with the facts. One of the things I talk about in the book, and I entitled the book, We've Got Issues, because look, I love this country. And, I get hate mail for saying I love this country.
Dr. Phil has often maintained that individuals are now so fearful of upsetting others that they walk on eggshells, restricting what they say for fear of being labeled offensive or intolerant. Should people be forever judged for their mistakes, or is there room for growth? Dr. Phil's stand challenges cancel culture and its impact on human development. Where do you stand?
I see things like trigger warnings. The majority of universities, my research has shown me that the majority of universities have utilized or are utilizing trigger warnings. I saw a couple of universities that are using trigger warnings for Romeo and Juliet.
He's especially outspoken about the role of language policing in this dynamic, pointing out how phrases have been reinterpreted to prevent hurting sentiments or excluding certain groups. Another example is when Dr. Phil mentioned how the word birthing people has replaced women in certain academic and medical circles. He considers this transition puzzling and unhelpful since it confuses communication and diverts attention away from more serious concerns.
I remember thinking when I was a kid, what would happen if all of a sudden people could read our uncensored minds? Think about that. Marriages, friendships, business, and government would not survive.
Dr. Phil slams safe spaces in schools, arguing they're coddling students instead of challenging them. He believes this approach is creating a generation unprepared for real-world challenges. Is he right, or are safe spaces necessary in today's world? Dr. Phil believes the purpose of education is to engage students with difficult ideas and encourage critical thinking. He argues that protecting students from uncomfortable topics hinders their ability to grow and learn to navigate complex realities.
Introduce yourself, doctor.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Safai. I'm a psychiatrist. I treat a lot of trans students. I just want to say that if the child could have gone to the parents, they would have before going to a teacher. Now, whether it's fear of not being accepted or in some cases safety, they chose to go to the next best adult.
Victimhood culture is another focal point of Dr. Phil's criticism. He argues that an excessive emphasis on seeing oneself as a victim can become a barrier to personal accountability and empowerment. While he acknowledges that real injustices exist, he worries that constantly focusing on victimization can foster a sense of helplessness. In various episodes, Dr. Phil has underscored the importance of taking responsibility for one's life circumstances rather than attributing all challenges to external forces. He believes that personal growth comes from acknowledging one's role in one's situation and making proactive changes.
I look at it from a pragmatic standpoint. I'm not as emotional about this as y'all are. So I look at it and say, how do I get you people the most of what you want? And I know the way to do that is don't poke the bear, okay?
Dr. Phil also aims to cancel culture, expressing concern over how swiftly people are ostracized for making mistakes or expressing controversial opinions. He sees this as a dangerous trend that limits the possibility of redemption and personal growth. Dr. Phil has also criticized cancel culture for impeding human development. According to him, individuals must be permitted to make errors and learn from them without being permanently excluded. Cancel culture inhibits personal and social progress by penalizing individuals for mistakes.
This really confounds me. We have this great freedom of speech, but then we seem to start getting in our own way. What's this about?
Well, you're right to be concerned about the erosion of freedom of speech. And even though we continue to have very strong legal rights to freedom of speech, those don't really mean anything if people don't feel free to actually engage in it.
Dr. Phil further connects his critique of woke culture to its impact on mental health. As a psychologist, he is alarmed by how the focus on victimhood and fear of being cancelled contributes to anxiety and a sense of disempowerment. He argues that the constant pressure to conform to the latest social norms can create serious psychological stress. Moreover, Dr. Phil believes that woke culture's emphasis on trauma and victimization can hinder people from building resilience. Rather than empowering individuals to rise above adversity, he sees this focus as encouraging them to dwell on their struggles, perpetuating a cycle of negativity.
Like when we talk about incitement, you can't say things that incite people to violence. But when we're talking about a situation like Kimberly here, where she's not trying to incite people, she's not defaming anyone, she's not talking about anybody at all. There's no object that she's aiming at.
Ultimately, Dr. Phil's message is clear. While advocating for equality and inclusivity is important, it should not come at the expense of personal accountability, open dialogue, or community unity. He believes that the pendulum has swung too far towards political correctness, and he calls for a more balanced approach that values both growth and responsibility. In Dr. Phil's view, fostering open discussions, encouraging personal responsibility, and building resilience are critical for the well-being of both individuals and society. His stance on woke culture is not about rejecting progress, but rather ensuring that foundational principles for societal success are not lost.
And
Correct.
some people might say, well, I wouldn't say that, so I don't want you to say that. That's where the problem arises.
Over the years, we'd seen a lot of cases where students were being punished for saying things online or saying things that offended people, but had nothing to do with the, their ability to be a student, to be professional in their workplaces, and we've seen the abuse of these professionalism standards that
Dr. Phil's crusade against woke culture has ignited a firestorm of debate. Is he a voice of reason in a world gone mad, or is he out of touch with modern sensibilities? The battle lines are drawn. Where do you stand? Sound off in the comments, smash that like button, and subscribe for more unfiltered celebrity takes on today's hottest issues.